The hall of the Concordium stretched beyond sight, its vaulted ceiling vanishing into silver haze. Alien banners hung like tapestries of living light, each sigil pulsing with the rhythm of the species that bore it. Some shimmered with bioluminescence, others rattled with metallic chimes. Thousands of eyes, compound, faceted, slit-pupiled, crystalline, turned as one toward the chamber doors when they opened with a long groan. Humanity's representative entered with neither flourish nor entourage. She walked alone. Her heels clicked softly against the polished obsidian floor. She carried no staff of office, wore no crest of military heritage, displayed no trailing robe of honor. Only a black suit, plain, tailored, almost severe, fit to her tall, spare frame. A thin braid of dark hair brushed against her collar. The council chamber, swollen with creatures bred to intimidate, suddenly felt as though it had grown colder. She smiled faintly, not wide enough to be warm, not narrow enough to be hostile. A diplomat's smile, carefully measured. The chamber whispered in its 100 tongues. "That is her," hissed a scaled envoy, her tail flicking in agitation. "They call her Baba Yaga," answered a crystalline elder whose body glowed faintly from within. "A human title. It means witch." The name traveled in ripples across the chamber. Some laughed, dismissive. Others shivered at the cadence of it, though they did not know why. She reached the dais reserved for humanity, a modest platform dwarfed by the thrones of older empires. Folding her hands behind her back, she inclined her head with unstudied grace. "Esteemed delegates of the Concordium," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried, clear, steady, devoid of tremor. "I thank you for your courtesy in allowing my people a voice among you." 1,000 eyes blinked. Her accent carried no lilt of conquest, no thunder of demand. She spoke as though addressing neighbors across a fence, and yet something in her composure suggested she did not ask permission to exist here. She assumed it. The chair being of the session, a towering avian with plumes tipped in fire, rose. Representative of soul, it intoned, "Your people are young, barely a century among the stars. Yet already complaints arise of aggression, of expansion beyond your station. Colonies report raids. Fleets report resistance. You must account for this." The woman smiled again. "Of course." She produced a small object from her sleeve, a thermos capped in steel. Uncapping it with a muted hiss, she poured steaming liquid into a ceramic cup she had brought herself. The aroma of roasted beans wafted through the chamber, alien nostrils flaring in unfamiliarity. She sipped before continuing, unhurried. "You must understand, my people are spirited," she said lightly. "We treasure our independence. When pressed, we resist, sometimes rather enthusiastically." Enthusiastically, a general from the Drac Confederacy rumbled. His carapace plates scraped together in menace. "Your militias have destroyed patrol craft, seized territory not yours to claim, and slaughtered noble warriors. Is that what you call enthusiasm?" Her eyes flicked toward him, calm, unreadable. "On Earth, General, we celebrate with fireworks. They are loud, they are bright, and they frighten the livestock. I assure you our enthusiasm could be mistaken for something far more dangerous if misunderstood." A ripple of laughter broke across the chamber, some genuine, some uneasy. The Drac General clacked his mandibles, uncertain whether he had been insulted. The human diplomat set her cup aside. "But let me be clear," she continued, her tone soft as silk. "Humanity does not seek war. We wish for trade, cooperation, cultural exchange. We admire the beauty of your civilizations, the wisdom of your traditions. Truly, we are eager students." The council chair nodded gravely. Murmurs rolled in agreement. The woman's manner was humble, respectful, almost deferential. Aliens relaxed, some leaning back in their thrones. Perhaps the humans were only brash children after all. But then she added casually, "Still, when someone strikes at us, we do strike back. It is not pride. It is survival. We learned long ago that mercy unguarded invites the knife. I am sure such wisdom is not foreign to this august assembly." The crystalline elder stirred. "A measured truth," he said, voice chiming like glass bells. Yet unease flickered among the younger species. The woman poured another cup, offering it with open palm toward her nearest neighbor. A serpentine delegate coiled upon a mound of silken moss. The alien sniffed suspiciously at the steaming liquid. "It is called coffee," she explained. "A human ritual of peace. We share it with friends, rivals, even enemies, if we seek to end quarrels. It keeps us awake. It sharpens the mind. Perhaps you'll find it agreeable." The serpent hissed, but accepted the cup. He sipped and recoiled at the bitter sting. A few delegates laughed. The human chuckled softly, almost apologetic. "An acquired taste," she said. "Much like us." The debate resumed, sharpened now, with challenges. Voices rose, accusing humanity of arrogance, of trespass. Each time, the woman answered with calm politeness, weaving anecdotes from Earth's history into her replies. "Our explorers crossed oceans in wooden shells," she reminded them. "Many died, yet they still pressed forward. We carved cities from deserts, tilled crops from stone. Hardship is not new to us. We endure." A furry delegate scoffed. "Endure, yes. But you are fragile. Your lifespans are short. Your technology lags. What can you offer the galaxy but trouble?" She inclined her head as though conceding the point. Fragile indeed. And yet fragile things can cut deep when shattered. The hall quieted for a moment. A strange weight hung in the air, gone as quickly as it came. She smiled once more, as though she had spoken of glass vases rather than civilizations at war. The chair being rustled its wings. "Representative of Sol, are you issuing threats to this council?" The woman's smile did not widen, but her eyes warmed as if she found the question amusing. "Oh no, never. I only wish to remind you. Humans are very good at pretending to be civilized. Please, do not make us stop pretending." For a beat, silence reigned. Then laughter erupted. Deep, rumbling guffaws from reptilian generals. High-pitched chittering from insectoid envoys. Melodic trills from avian delegates. The notion of frail humans posing danger seemed absurd. They laughed until the sound shook the banners overhead. But not all laughed. In the shadows, a few ancient species leaned forward, their gazes heavy with recognition. They had seen eyes like hers before, long ago, on forgotten battlefields where predators walked upright and smiled even as they bled. The woman reclaimed her thermos, sipping as though the chamber's mirth were nothing to her. She gazed out upon them, serene, patient, waiting. Then, without warning, the chamber doors burst open. A courier drone hurtled inward, lights flashing urgent crimson. The laughter died in a ripple. The chair being clacked its beak. "State your purpose." The drone projected a hologram into the chamber's center. A message unfurled across the vaulted air, its letters stark, burning, undeniable. From United Earth Command to Concordium Council. Subject, ultimatum. Cease all hostile actions against human colonies. Withdraw your fleets. End your predations. This is your first and final courtesy. Failure to comply will force consequences no words can later mend. The chamber seethed. Delegates shouted. Wings flared, mandibles snapped. A dozen voices cried outrage. Arrogance. Madness. They dare dictate terms? The woman only sipped her coffee. She set the cup down with exquisite care, as though concluding a ritual. Then she looked up, her eyes catching the council's fury like flint catching steel. Her smile remained polite, but her words settled into the chamber with the weight of stone. "My colleagues," she said softly, "this is what restraint sounds like." The uproar rattled the vaulted chamber, echoing off walls inscribed with centuries of treaties and betrayals. Delegates shouted across one another, the cacophony of 100 tongues devolving into chaos. Some demanded sanctions against humanity, others called for immediate war, and a few, older, warier, urged caution. Through it all, the human sat still, hands folded neatly, the ghost of a smile lingering on her lips. Baba Yaga looked less like a diplomat now, and more like a teacher watching unruly children exhaust themselves. She sipped from her thermos with unhurried grace, steam rising around her face like mist curling from a forest floor. Finally, the chair being struck its talons against the dais, a thunderclap that cut the uproar in two. Silence rippled outward. Its eyes, black pools set beneath fiery plumes, burned into the human. Representative of soul, it said, its tone brittle with strain, you must explain this. Your government presumes to issue ultimatums to this council? Do you seek war with the Concordium? She set her cup down, letting porcelain kiss stone. Seek. Her tone carried a lilt of amusement. No. We are far too busy surviving to seek anything so extravagant. War finds us often enough without our invitation. Murmurs hissed through the chamber. The Drac General clattered his mandibles. You hide behind soft words, human. Yet your militias spill blood. You claim defense, but the tally grows. Her gaze slid to him, calm, direct. General, on Earth we have a saying. If you poke a nest of wasps, do not complain when you are stung. You mistake our reluctance for weakness. That is a dangerous mistake. The crystalline elder tilted his head, facets gleaming. And what lies beneath reluctance, child of soul? For a moment, the chamber seemed to hold its breath. Then her smile curved, serene and terrifying all at once. Teeth, she said simply. A shiver traveled through the assembly. The serpent delegate who had tasted her coffee hissed. You cloak threats in metaphors. Perhaps you should be clearer. She leaned back, crossing one leg over the other, posture loose, almost conversational. Clarity, then. My people are predators. We learn to stalk, to chase, to corner long before we learn to speak. Civilization was not born from peace. It was our leash. We built walls to protect others from us as much as ourselves. Do not mistake that leash for weakness. If it breaks, she let the thought dangle, like a blade suspended on silk. The laughter that had greeted her in the first session no longer came so freely. Some aliens shifted uneasily in their seats, claws flexing, feathers ruffling. Others bristled in defiance, unwilling to yield ground to so young a species. The avian chair being clicked its beak. Stories. Every species has myths of savagery. You humans tell yours well, but they are still myths. Her eyes warmed, almost pitying. Oh, I wasn't speaking of myth. I was speaking of history. She leaned forward, her voice softening to an intimacy that carried sharper menace than any shout. Do you know of Stalingrad? Verdun? The Somme? No. Then let me gift you fragments. Children fought with knives in alleys. Entire cities starved rather than surrender. Millions died in trenches of mud for ground measured in feet. We tore each other apart not for survival against alien threats, but for pride, for flags, for borders. Tell me, chair being, if we would do that to ourselves, what do you think we would do to those who come to take what is ours? The silence afterward was suffocating. Even the banners of light seemed to dim. A smaller envoy, avian and trembling, finally spoke. Why reveal this? Why tell us what monsters you might be? Her gaze softened, and for the first time there was genuine weariness in it. Because you mistake our smiles for docility. You imagine that because we trade politely, we are tamed. But masks are only masks. Better you glimpse the face beneath than force us to remove it altogether. The chamber buzzed, unease unraveling into fear. Some tried to dismiss her words as theater. Others whispered to allies with growing urgency. Reports began to stream in from couriers and drones. One delegate rose to display a hologram. A skirmish in the Carbon Rift where a human mining colony had been besieged. Against all expectation, the colony still held. Footage showed ragged men and women, half-starved, fighting with jury-rigged weapons, laughing even as they charged fortified lines. They would not fall, the envoy whispered. We destroyed their shelters. We cut their supplies. And yet they sang. Another report followed, this from the frontier world of Arathel. A Drac battalion had landed to put down a human settlement. The humans did not surrender. The recording captured a mother shielding her children with nothing but a kitchen blade, her face set in grim defiance as she advanced on armored soldiers. The battalion withdrew in disorder. The Drac general snarled, plates rattling. Is this courage or madness? Baba Yaga's lips parted in the faintest smile. Often general, they are the same. Laughter rose again, but this time it was thinner, edged with nerves. The crystalline elder's voice rang clear. You tell us you are predators. You remind us you bleed without surrender. But predators eventually meet greater predators. Are you not afraid? Her gaze lifted to the high ceiling, to the ancient banners. Afraid? Constantly. That is why we endure. Fear hones us. It keeps us alive, sharper than complacency ever could. A lion grown fat in safety forgets how to hunt. We do not forget. The serpent delegate coiled tighter on his moss. You play at riddles. What is it you want of us, human? Her eyes returned to him, and though her smile remained, something colder glimmered beneath. Respect. Or silence. Either will suffice. Another courier drone arrived, interrupting the exchange. This one bore no words, only data, streams of intercepted reports. Alien fleets had engaged human outposts across 3 sectors. Losses should have been overwhelming, yet somehow, inexplicably, the humans held or retaliated. Patterns emerged that were too precise to be coincidence. Ambushes, traps, feints, strategies that suggested preparation, not improvisation. The chamber filled with alarm. Delegates clamored over one another, demanding explanations. How could a species so young wage defense with such cunning? How could their ragtag militias anticipate seasoned fleets? The human diplomats sat in silence, letting the questions coil tighter, feeding unease like dry tinder. Then, when the room reached fever pitch, she spoke in that same calm tone that made even her smallest words strike like a hammer. Have you ever played chess? She asked. Some stared in confusion. Others muttered. They had heard of the human game, a war of squares and carved figures. It is a pastime of ours, she continued, her voice almost wistful. 2 sides locked in combat. At first it seems simple. Pawns crawl forward. Knights leap. Bishops glide. But the board is larger than it looks, and the moves you make at the beginning decide the shape of the end. We do not always need greater numbers. We only need patience. A rook in the right place at the right time changes everything. She let the metaphor hang. Some understood at once. Others scoffed, refusing the chill creeping through their thoughts. You suggest you have prepared this war already, accused the avian chair being. Her eyes twinkled, as though at a private joke. Suggest? Oh no. I am merely telling you we enjoy games that reward foresight. Poker, too, another favorite. We smile, we bluff, we bet everything on a single hand. And sometimes she leaned forward, her voice no louder than a whisper, but felt by every ear. Sometimes we are not bluffing at all. The serpent delegate hissed, his coils tightening. The crystalline elder's glow dimmed. Even the Drac general faltered, mandibles shifting uncertainly. In the gallery shadows, one of the oldest species stirred, a creature so ancient its name had been forgotten by all but record keepers. Its voice was a rasp like wind through ruins. I have seen such eyes before, long ago when the oceans boiled and the skies burned. Do not laugh at them. They are what they claim. The chamber went still. Every gaze slid back to the woman seated so serenely at the human dais. Her smile had not shifted. She poured the last of her coffee, lifting the cup to her lips, as though savoring a private ritual. At that moment, the chamber doors yawned open once again. A third courier drone swept inside, its message unfiltered, projected in cold light across the council center. It was not words this time, but images. The void above the council's own world. Human ships floated there. Dozens. Hundreds. Silent, dark engines idling. Weapons sheathed, but unmistakably primed. They had arrived without announcement, without fanfare, without firing a shot. The chamber froze. Every delegate stared at the projection in disbelief, horror dawning as they realized what it meant. The humans had not simply threatened consequences. They were already in place to deliver them. Baba Yaga set her empty cup aside and folded her hands once more, her composure unbroken. Only her eyes betrayed the faintest glimmer of steel beneath the smile. "You see," she said softly, as though sharing a secret, "our mask does not slip by accident. It slips when we decide you are ready to see." Panic spread through the Concordium chamber, like fire racing across dry fields. The projection of human warships hung in the vaulted air, their silhouettes stark and silent against the planet's pale blue stratosphere. They did not fire. They did not even move. Yet their stillness was more terrifying than any barrage. Delegates erupted into alarm. Claws clattered against stone. Wings beat in agitation. Mandibles snapped in frantic debate. The chamber that had once rung with laughter now seethed with fear. Some shouted for immediate evacuation, others demanded retaliation, and a few, the oldest and wisest, sat in frozen silence, as though watching a storm they had always known would come. Baba Yaga did not rise. She remained in her seat at the modest human dais, legs crossed, hands folded, serenity unbroken. Only the faint curl of her lips betrayed her awareness of the chaos unraveling around her. She looked less like a diplomat and more like a wolf waiting for the herd to stampede. The avian chair being slammed its talons down once more, sending a thunderclap across the chamber. "Explain this," it shrieked, feathers bristling with flame. "Explain the presence of these vessels over our skies. This is an act of war." The human tilted her head, her gaze calm, almost sympathetic. "War," she repeated softly, as if tasting the word. "No. If it were war, your skies would already burn." The words struck harder than any shouted threat. For a moment, silence blanketed the room again, heavy and suffocating. The Drac general's plates rattled as he rose. "You would dare surround this world? You think your ragged fleets can hold against the Concordium? We could crush you in days." Her eyes slid to him, and this time her smile sharpened. "General, history suggests otherwise. Shall I tell you about Afghanistan? A land of mountains where empires went to die. We learned that you do not need the largest armies to win, only patience, and the will to endure longer than your opponent's appetite for pain." He clattered his mandibles, but no retort came. The crystalline elder chimed faintly. "If you do not seek war, then why this display?" She leaned forward, voice low and measured. "Because you mistake mercy for weakness. We are showing you the courtesy of silence, not the inevitability of violence. Consider this a demonstration of what happens when we stop smiling." Her words were not shouted, yet they filled the chamber with the weight of iron chains. Delegates glanced at one another, some trembling, some furious, all unsettled. A serpent envoy hissed from his coil of moss. "If your fleets fire, the galaxy will unite against you. You cannot stand against all of us." Baba Yaga's smile thinned. "Unite? Oh, I think not. You are too fractured, too mistrustful of each other. You have grown fat in comfort. You have forgotten hunger. We have not." She let the silence stretch, watching the ripples of unease deepen. Then, with deliberate calm, she rose from her seat for the first time. Her height was unremarkable by alien standards, yet as she stood, it seemed the entire chamber shrank around her. She began to walk, each footfall echoing against obsidian stone. Her hands remained loosely clasped behind her back. "You ask what humanity wants. We want what all species want: to survive, to thrive, to raise children without fear of annihilation. But unlike you, we learned early that survival does not come from treaties alone. It comes from teeth, from claws, from fire." She stopped before the Drac general's throne, looking up at the hulking insectoid whose armor gleamed like obsidian plates. He loomed over her, twice her size, mandibles clicking in rage. She gazed into his multifaceted eyes without flinching. "Your soldiers came to one of our colonies. They expected us to kneel. Instead, farmers with shotguns bled them in the mud until they retreated. Do you know why? Because every human knows this truth. Surrender is death. Better to choke the earth with our bodies than bow." The general recoiled, mandibles shifting, uncertain whether to lash out or retreat. She turned from him, crossing to the center of the chamber. Her voice rose now, not in volume, but in intensity, the steel beneath the silk fully unsheathed. We are polite because we choose to be. We build embassies, we share coffee, we trade goods, because that is the mask civilization requires. But masks, my esteemed colleagues, are fragile things. Push us hard enough, and they shatter. She snapped her fingers. At once, the projection shifted. The human fleet above the council world blinked into different formations, shapes that mirrored chessboards, encirclements, patterns of siege. Each movement was choreographed, silent, efficient. "Do you see?" she asked softly. "We are not improvising. We are not stumbling. We have already placed our pieces. You are only now realizing the game has begun." Delegates broke into uproar again, some demanding immediate countermeasures, others whispering frantically to aides. The avian chair being screeched for order, feathers aflame. One trembling envoy, young and reptilian, rose to his feet. "You cannot frighten us all with shadows and words." Baba Yaga's gaze settled on him, patient, cold. "Shadows and words? Then let me give you something more." The projection flickered again, this time displaying battlefields across the galaxy. Not victories, but survivals. Outnumbered human militias, holding against overwhelming odds. Ships crippled, but still ramming enemy vessels. Families arming themselves with knives and rocks when their defenses failed. Survivors laughing in the face of hopeless odds. She turned, her eyes sweeping the assembly. "You call us fragile. You call us reckless. Perhaps. But fragile things that refuse to break are more dangerous than you imagine." The crystalline elder whispered, his light flickering faintly. "They bleed, and yet they do not stop." The chamber fell into an uneasy hush, the silence of beings who had seen just enough to believe. Then the human diplomat returned to her dais, sitting once more with deliberate calm. She refilled her cup, steam rising once again like a ritual completed. "You see, we are not asking for permission to exist. We are offering you a choice. Respect or silence. Either will suffice." The avian chair being flared its wings. "This council will not be intimidated." Her smile deepened, almost gentle. "Intimidation is not my purpose. Clarity is. You are at a crossroads. One path continues as before, with civility intact. The other," she gestured faintly to the hovering projection of human fleets, "leads to silence." Delegates exchanged frantic words, but their voices were drowned by the steady hum of fear. At last, the ancient creature in the shadows stirred again, its voice a rasp. "They are not bluffing. I remember when the stars burned. The eyes are the same. Do not test them." All attention swung back to Baba Yaga. She set down her cup, folding her hands once more. The mask of politeness remained, but for the first time the steel beneath was no longer hidden. And then the projection shifted once more, unbidden. This time, it was no longer controlled from her dais. A message broadcast across the chamber from the fleets themselves, a human voice echoing with chilling calm. "This is United Earth Command. The Concordium has 24 hours to cease hostilities against human colonies and withdraw their forces. Compliance will preserve peace. Failure will result in consequences beyond negotiation." The voice faded, leaving silence so deep it seemed to press against the bones of every delegate. Slowly, Baba Yaga lifted her gaze. She did not speak immediately. She let the silence linger, a predator savoring the last moment before the kill. Then, softly, she said, "The mask has slipped. Now you must decide whether you prefer the face beneath." The council chamber trembled with the weight of silence after the ultimatum. Delegates stared at one another, their eyes wide, their bodies restless, every instinct screaming that the ground beneath them had shifted. They were leaders of empires, voices of mighty fleets. But in that moment, they looked like prey animals realizing the predator was already in the room. Baba Yaga sat perfectly still at her dais, as if carved from obsidian. Her cup sat empty before her, its thin trail of steam gone. Her smile lingered, faint and unreadable. She had not shouted, she had not moved armies into motion, yet the chamber quivered as though thunder had passed through it. The Drac General rose again, plates clattering. "This is coercion. Terrorism. You cannot dictate terms to the Concordium. His mandibles snapped in fury, but the sound lacked conviction. His voice carried more desperation than strength. Baba Yaga's gaze drifted toward him, steady as a blade. General, I am not dictating terms. I am describing the weather. You may rage against a storm, but it will not stop raining. The crystalline elder pulsed faintly, voice chiming. And what human is it you would have of us? What is your true demand? She rose then, unfolding like something that had waited too long in stillness. Her voice, when it came, was low, resonant, without any performative flourish. We want to live without your fleets on our borders. We want our children to see the sunrise without fearing bombardment. We want your hands out of our homes, your knives out of our throats. That is all. The chair being's feathers flared with frustration. And if we refuse? She turned her gaze upward toward the projection of ships that still hovered in the vaulted air. Then the masks come off. Gasps rippled through the chamber. A serpent envoy hissed, curling tighter. You keep speaking of masks. Do you mean your civility itself is a disguise? Baba Yaga's smile sharpened into something thin and humorless. Yes, civility is a leash we forge to restrain ourselves. Our history is rivers of blood, continents burned, skies blackened with war. We wear suits, we share coffee, we smile politely. Because if we do not, then we return to what we were. And I promise you, none of you want to see that. Not your fleets. Not your worlds. Not your children. The hall went still again, dread pooling thick as smoke. She took a step forward, her voice soft, intimate, like a confession whispered in the dark. Do you know what it means to be human? It means to never stop. To fight with bare hands when weapons break, to sharpen rocks when the steel is gone, to spit blood in the face of the conqueror, and dare them to finish the job. We bury our dead and march over their graves. We endure winter famines, plagues, and firestorms, and we keep walking. We are not strong because we are unbreakable. We are strong because we break, and we break, and we break again, and still we rise. The crystalline elder glowed faintly, voice trembling. And if the galaxy decides you are too dangerous, if we strike together to end you. She inclined her head, almost kindly. Then you had better not miss. Because if even one of us survives, even one, the war never ends. Humanity is not a flame you can snuff. We are embers, and embers smolder until the wind shifts. The chamber's atmosphere grew suffocating. The youngest delegates averted their eyes. Some older ones nodded faintly, as though confirming what they had always suspected, but had never wanted to name aloud. The chair being bristled. You mean to hold the galaxy hostage with fear? Her smile softened into something almost mournful. Not fear. Memory. I am giving you the memory now, so you will not force us to carve it into your bones later. A courier drone zipped into the chamber, bearing fresh reports. Images flickered. Human fleets had disabled Concordian patrols across 3 sectors, not destroyed, only disabled. Ships drifted powerless, their crews alive but helpless. The precision was unmistakable. Humanity was demonstrating power without excess, cruelty without finality. It was not war. It was warning. Delegates broke into whispers, terror flooding every word. The serpent envoy hissed, "You have already ensnared us. You came smiling, you traded trinkets, and all the while you placed your claws at our throats." Baba Yaga tilted her head. "Yes, and if you had left us alone, you would never have felt the claws. We were content to remain polite. You are the ones who demanded to see what lay beneath." The Drac general slammed his claws down. "This is madness. You cannot hope to hold such a line forever. Numbers will crush you." She regarded him with something like pity. "Numbers do not win wars, General. Will does. Ask your ancestors about the Mongols, about the Viet, about every empire that thought itself too vast to fall. It is never numbers. It is hunger. And we are always hungry." Her words reverberated, sinking into the marrow of the chamber. Even those who hated her could not deny the chill they felt. The crystalline elder finally leaned forward, his body glowing faintly brighter. So this is your final warning. This is humanity's truth. Baba Yaga looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of every delegate in turn. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to the furthest alcove. Yes, this is our final warning. Stop attacking us, or we stop pretending to be civilized. You will not like what you find beneath. For a moment, no one spoke. The words hung heavy, the inevitability of them undeniable. Then, slowly, voices rose, not in laughter, not in outrage, but in frightened debate. Some called for immediate withdrawal of fleets. Others demanded desperate measures. A few, proud and stubborn, still whispered of resistance. The ancient creature in the shadows rasped again, its voice dry as dust. Do not test them. The mask has already cracked. If it shatters, we will all choke on the pieces. The chamber descended into chaos once more. But beneath the uproar, a quiet certainty spread. The delegates had seen the truth in her eyes. They had felt it in their bones. Humanity was not bluffing. Humanity never bluffed. Baba Yaga sat again, folding her hands neatly, the smile returning like a veil drawn once more. But the veil was transparent now, and everyone knew what lingered behind it. She poured one last cup of coffee, steam curling upward, delicate and fragrant. She lifted it slowly, savoring the silence that fought to contain itself in the chamber. Her voice was soft, almost tender, but each syllable struck like iron. This is mercy. Do not ask what it looks like when we stop pretending. The words settled, final and immovable. No reply could follow them. And then, as if in answer, the projection above the chamber shifted one last time. The human fleets that had hovered motionless began to turn, their engines igniting in eerie unison. Not toward the planet, but outward, spreading across the system, taking positions, a vast net woven in silence. Not an attack, not yet, but the promise of one, should the warning go unheeded. The delegates froze, transfixed by the sight. They understood at last. The humans were not begging for peace. They were offering it as a gift, fragile and conditional, the last restraint before something older, darker, and unstoppable awoke. Baba Yaga lowered her cup, her eyes meeting the council with that same faint smile. Now, she said softly, choose.